FM Lagos. You find a beautiful app there. Just download it so you can take us with you wherever you go.
That's right. You can also send us a message on 0809 4440981. That's 0809 4440981. But of course, we'd love to hear your voice. Like Valentine mentioned, it is Lagos Talks 981. So just in case you didn't get our number earlier, it is 014409
014489981.
981.
Somebody's hungry.
I'm not hungry. I was
Yes,
mixing
you
with
are.
our WhatsApp
I don't
number.
lie on radio, live radio.
I'm only hungry if people are offering to buy me food. All right. Welcome,
So that
Lagos.
number to call, because it's a primary mode of communication, the number to call is 0144899981.
981.
WhatsApp 0809440981.
981.
We have a very special guest. She's
Yes, we
very
do.
special because she's, as far as I'm concerned, you're part of the family. Her name is, in fact, before I say her name, she's a recruitment and HR project expert, GPHR, Funmi Bucknor. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
And the crowd went, wow.
Yeah, she's fondly referred to as HR Madam.
Yes.
And this is what she eats, sleeps, and you can wake her up anytime in the middle of the night and ask her any HR related question.
Yes.
And she will be more than happy to answer. And on that note, would like to officially, and I'm sure we've done this before, but wish everyone a happy Workers' Day. It is May
Workers'
Day.
Day.
It's May Day around the world, and workers, it's your day. If you worked hard, you're earning money, you're an employer, an employee, congratulations today. Sit back, kick off your feet, and relax. Happy Workers' Day.
So for me, most, can I call you for me?
Yes.
All right. So most Nigerians consider Workers' Day as just a day to rest. Oh my goodness, another public holiday. Let's not go to work, Joe. Traffic, no traffic in Lagos. Everybody's just relaxed and enjoying that. But there are a lot of questions that surround the workforce in Nigeria. People easily trumpet the call for better, more jobs to be created. First of all, a better working environment, benefits, everything, pensions, allowances to be paid, and whatnot, and salaries to be paid in time.
Yeah.
But people rarely ask themselves how well they perform as workers. All these areas we'll be looking at it, but a very close focus will be placed on employee welfare and benefits, because before you ask, you have to know. It has to come from a place of knowledge, correct?
Yep.
So, but how do you see the employability of Nigerians in general?
Okay, so that's a big issue. And in fact, I'm going to be at a conference after this where we're going to be addressing people looking for work, so job seekers or people looking to change careers. So there is the issue of unemployment, like we know, but then I ask, are there really no jobs? I think that there are jobs because I'm a recruiter, and almost every day, people come to me to say, help me recruit an accountant or help me recruit a digital marketing expert, and all of that. But in my own experience, the issue is employability. A lot of people, you have a lot of people looking for work, but are they employable? Do they have the right skills that employers are looking for? I don't think so. And I think that this is what a lot of employers or HR experts are trying. This is the gap that they're trying to bridge. So you even see, like 2 Saturdays ago, I was at Elevation Church, part of their career program. So I was one of the mentors, just talking to people in general, like preparing them for the workplace. Beyond your technical abilities, what other things are employers looking for? And do you have them? If you do not have them, you better work on yourself to make sure that you get them.
What are these things, though?
Okay, so some things that most times they're soft skills, and unfortunately, I'm not even sure if they teach it in schools abroad, but in Nigeria, we know the system in Nigeria. A lot of things are not taught, but even if they're not taught, the internet is replete with, with materials that you can actually learn from. So, for example, things like communication skills. So at interviews, which is the selection process. The employer wants to see your ability to communicate well. So it's not just okay. So let me use an example now. In the past, we used to think that accounting or being an accountant is a silos role, but recently we're realizing that as an accountant, you need to communicate, for example, reports, management reports. You need to communicate reports to management and things like that. So your It's very, very important. So then that means that beyond you having good Excel skills, you have PowerPoint presentation skills. Can you present to an audience? And things like that. So, and apart from communication skills, analytical skills. These days, people are not even expecting you to be able to do only one thing. People are looking for an accountant that can also handle tax. So it's an all-encompassing approach these days, and that's what people should look at doing. People want you to be an admin officer, but also for you to be able to handle their online content, and things like that. So you cannot just do one thing these days anymore.
It's a fast-changing world.
So you have to be multi-skilled.
Yeah.
You have to be able to be adaptable
Yeah.
to many situations
Absolutely.
as an employee. Today the focus is on welfare. We had talked about the fact that in honor of Workers' Day, we'd love to talk about welfare benefits and rights. As in recent times, we realized that a number of people apparently do not understand what they're entitled to in the workplace, what is supposed to be done, what the responsibility of the employer to the employees are. So oftentimes we know what your job description is, how you're meant to behave at work, but in the same way we do not quite understand what it is that employers owe employees. And so people take a lot of things not understanding their rights, particularly as provided by law in Nigeria. So we're going to open the phone lines very shortly. Some people have said calling now. It's opened actually, and take some comments.
Okay.
People who have questions or in particular situations as well around welfare. We looked at
employee relations.
Yes, employee relations. Some of which is just a policy by particular companies and what should be standard by law. We'll be looking at that, and of course with pensions contribution, looking at leave allowance, payment, looking at all these issues. We already have a question
from Randolph. We're going to come to that and the calls right after this break. Lagos, you just tuned in. This is Lagos Talks 981. The phone line to call is 0144899981. Our special guest is a recruitment and HR project expert, Funmi Bucknor.
You people want to set me up. Give me your questions.
No, it's a conversation.
It's a conversation. So
Yeah,
the questions so Randolph is asking about. So I have a personal case of a friend who went on maternity leave and she's being penalized for that. So they're going to probably fire her because she's had 2 babies in a space of I don't know how long. And we're having that conversation of as to okay, what does in Nigeria we don't know what happens. I know this happens a lot in my former organization whereby once you have a baby, you just know you're almost on your way out because employers be like, you're wasting their money. They just keep paying maternity leave and all that. So that kind of thing, she's a bit helpless. And when we're giving her advice, she was like, but this is Nigeria. So what can people do in situations? Is it legal? As basic as it sounds, so people don't actually know that it's illegal for you to be fired because you went off on maternity leave.
So I think that it would be stupid for anybody to say we're firing you because you went on maternity leave. One of the ways that employers can,
Can you say this on there?
Yes. So let's not. So because that's really important.
No. I'm trying to explain a situation to you. I mean, nobody will give you a sack letter saying you are being sacked because they put it around performance.
Yes.
And in that case, there's really not much you can do because at the end of the day, it's an employer's market. If you get what I mean, so it's an employer's market. Apart from the fact that the regulatory bodies don't really even do much. You have more people looking for work than the works that are the jobs that are available. Are we
coming back on here?
Okay.
15 seconds.
My love.
All right, studio is live. Mics are up.
98.
You're tuned in and listening to Smooth 98.1. Today, we have a special for Lagos Talks 981. A special guest is Funmi Bucknor, GPHR. She's in recruitment, field of expertise, recruitment and HR projects. And she's here to have a very fun conversation. Well, I say fun deliberately because today's Workers' Day. You're enjoying yourself on holiday. But it's very important for you to know what rights, benefits, and welfare that you're entitled to. Knowledge is power, like leaders would say, our forefathers would say. But Does that still exist? Is that still practical in this
It's
day?
only if it's applied. So
Right.
you can know something. If you do not use it, it is
Uh-huh.
not power.
Okay, so before the break, Fumi, you're telling us about soft skills that employees should have, that employers now of labor are looking for. Give a case in point of the accountant who's looking for a job. The accountant should have sound communication skills and should have analytical skills as well. We'll find that most Nigerians, well, let me not say most Nigerians because that's subjective. It still occurs around the world.
Yeah.
A lot of people are looking for particular jobs, not understanding that they should be well rounded in other skills, which is why I like that you went that route. But speaking to the question that came up
As
during the
we-
break.
Yes, during the break, before and after during the break, we talked about employee welfare and benefits. And I'm glad that we started on a foundation of actually speaking to employees because, yes, we can focus on employers who are not behaving well, but we also have to look at employees who are behaving badly as well. But with regards to welfare and benefits, we asked, I have a personal example, and we can start with that. I have a friend who started work, got pregnant first instance and is now expecting again and is looking to go on maternity leave. Now her fear is that she's going to be fired because her employers are not quite happy about the fact that she's taking this leave. So they've put someone in place who is meant to be her replacement,
Understand.
yeah, on a temporary basis, but the person was employed on a permanent base. So obviously the signs are already there. She's feeling the body language, and the question is, can someone be fired based on this wrongful, dismissal based on the fact that you've taken a number of maternity leave?
Okay, so like I said, even during the break, that I think it's only a mad person that would say we're firing you because you're going on maternity. What employers would typically do is what the scenario that you've painted. So maybe hire someone to take your role and tie your exit to poor performance or something. But I definitely it is wrong for you to fire someone because they went on maternity leave. Now, if I want to speak for both sides, so on the part of the employer, so you've hired someone maybe a year after they came on board, then they got pregnant, they took 3 months leave, or in some instances 6 months, because I think the new law even says it's 6 months.
I know currently you'll be paid for 3 months, and the rest of the 3 months is without pay.
Unpaid.
I don't know if that's
Is
changed.
without pay. Yeah. So no, I think it has changed,
Okay.
but I need to check that.
Mhm.
So you're gone for another you're gone for 6 months, and then you came back to work, and I say, I mean, I'm sure it's definitely unplanned.
Yeah.
Another 6 months, you got pregnant again. Productivity will dip. And that's the truth of the matter. And at the end of the day, someone has hired you to do a particular job. Now, really, as an employer, if you want to be selfish, you can say you are not adding value anymore, and so because of that we need to hire someone else. But if you want to look at the society as a whole, and at large, how are you contributing to the society? Why are you upset that someone got pregnant and because of that you want to sack them? How about looking to move them into another department that is not as demanding as the current one that they are in? Or how about give them time off, or just negotiate some form of do some form of negotiation with them and say, you know what, you can take all the time that you want, but maybe we'll pay you up until this certain number of months, and after that, it's going to be without pay. Take your time, go and build your family, because people are entering the world of work and they are also having to start their families and things like that. So you cannot say because someone is starting a family, they should not work, or because someone is working, they should not start a family. So that sort of thing. So a considerate employer will look for a way to make it easy for both parties.
Yes.
So that's it. So maybe move the person to a less demanding job role, or tell them, take your time, we'll pay you for the maternity period, and and all of that, or we'll pay you half your salary for a particular period of time, or something like that. I'm sure someone who is also considerate as an employee will look at the fact that
Making concessions. Well,
I like that. Sorry, just to hinge on what the last statement you made. I like that you said considerate. You use that, for to describe the employer. I mean, and made allusions to the fact that the employee could be considerate, but shouldn't the, because there was a part of the statement where you said on an unplanned pregnancy. I feel like pregnancies. I don't know. I might just be expressing a very unpopular opinion that pregnancy should be planned.
it should be, but
It should be
in some
planned because
Yeah,
cases-
but
if you do it, if it happens the first time, it's never a mistake, right? Sometimes it could be. It's,
Sometimes
it's often a mistake, really, but
not often, but sometimes.
tongue-in-cheek moments for me. But when it happens, most of the time it's not planned.
Yeah.
But when it happens the first time, like you said, it can be excused. The employer should be considerate enough to know that this is normal life cycle, and you should even be considerate to the family planning or whatever decisions they make with raising a family. But when it happens a third time, a fourth time, can that person be laid off consecutively? Because some people actually get pregnant in the space of back to back 2 months difference. But could you say that the employer could be laid off because they were not considerate to the employer? The employee could be laid off.
You can't lay someone off. Maybe I don't even, not that I don't really understand. Maybe we're not using the right words. You cannot give someone a sack letter and say, we're telling you to go away because you got pregnant.
No, because you're going inconsiderate with your pregnancy.
Employers will be creative about it and just tie it to performance, like how many days have you taken off work, and things like that. Your productivity is not at the level that it's expected, and just things like that, and say owing to poor performance we are letting you go.
Yes.
So it is you would know that, oh, it's because I got pregnant and all of that, but no employer will come and say it's because you got pregnant.
Well, Dr. Chris Ngige in 2018 had announced that in the public service they'd increased from 12 weeks to 16 weeks. So we're talking about the maternity.
Yeah.
And he also emphasized the fact that no woman should be laid off because of her, of her being female, and also because of her pregnancy, and should pursue this legal, through the legal route and ensure that your rights are not trampled upon. I know this is all nice and it's a great soundbite on paper, but when it comes to the practicalities,
exactly,
in terms of
these
the
things,
legal process, how
you have you have to prove that that's the reason why you're being laid off. Yeah.
Well, how do you go about that?
So it becomes a legal battle in the court.
Yeah.
So and if the employer has a good lawyer, they can argue that it's not because the person got pregnant. So really, it will have to be you proving that it's because you got pregnant, whether they said it to you directly or something. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So women, we understand, it's general knowledge. Women don't get pregnant by themselves. The men are responsible. So talk about responsibility. And
but women can do IVF these days. Single women can do IVF.
Yes, I understand that. I mean, in an ever-changing world, but we need the male figure to be there to be supportive during the time of maternity. Let's speak to paternity leave.
Okay.
Is there a possibility of it being existent and being enshrined in law in Nigeria?
At the moment, I do not think that it is. But at the end of the day, some of these things that we're even discussing, they're best practices.
Yes.
So it's not, and best practice means that while it is good, it's not everybody that is going to latch onto it and use all these things. So there are companies in Nigeria. And by the way, where you have all these best practices are usually multinationals and foreign companies. I would like a situation where we have local companies. Well, I don't know if I can mention brands, but there are certain, but there are certain banks that are Nigerian banks, and I would imagine that they have those things in place. Best practices, yeah. So I mean, there are local companies that have those things in place, yeah. But it's not required by law that you should have. Oh, no. It is. Yeah. Paternity is
I know
required
I'm
by
asking
law.
this question.
In Lagos State, within the first 2 months, you're allowed 10 days, at least in Lagos State civil service.
No. It's been passed into law, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh,
In
we have
Lagos
some
State,
questions on WhatsApp. So in case you didn't know, because most often the reason why people don't access these rights and privileges is because they are not aware or they're ignorant of it. And sometimes the only
And whose
thing...
fault is it that they're ignorant of these things? Because when they pass all these laws, they put in the papers. There are conversations around it on Twitter, on Facebook, on almost every platform. So why don't you know about it?
We have a
do
question
your
here
work.
from Randolph. Randolph says, is it right for a prospective employer to ask for for your current pay slip Someone told me it's not right because it's probably makes them offer you something lower than what was budgeted. I guess it's in the case of negotiating a new salary in a new place of work. It says, and that way you might never get a big break. How true is this?
I don't know whether I don't think it is right to say it is wrong or right. If you get what I mean,
Yeah.
it's a practice. Even abroad, they ask you for your pay slips. And I'll tell you, when I recruit, especially when I was still doing backroom HR, and I'll say, okay, can I have your pay slips? I mean, everywhere I work, they ask for my pay slips, you know. And it's because people also lie at interviews.
Yes.
Most times, especially in the organizations that I worked, your pay slips wasn't the reason why they gave you what they gave you. In any case, those places had, you know, structured payment systems or compensation and benefits. They had proper compensation and benefit structures.
Yes.
So they had, for example, a band for a particular level. So even if we're coming in as assistant manager, there are different bands in that, and they just look for where you sit in that band, if you get what I mean. So the reason why people ask is so sometimes people lie. People also lie at interviews because they want a big break. So they say they are currently earning so, and then they ask for whatever. Now, if you can lie to me at interviews and I'm hiring you to come and handle money, a job role that requires you to handle money, are you not going to steal? So what is the big deal in telling me what you're currently earning? I do know that, you know, some employers also use it to determine what they're going to offer you, but that's not best practice. I mean, I know an organization that even if you say pay me something lower because I want your brand on my CV, those as a policy they cannot pay you lower than what you're currently earning. So, you know, different organizations have their policies around pay and all of that, and I want to imagine that people have, you know, best practices or good policies around pay, and that, you know, you giving them your pay slip or not should not be a determining factor in what they pay you.
Looking at this issue of integrity, I have a random question. Is it ethical for a company to use a lie detector in the process of interview?
Lie detectors, they don't even really work. That's why they don't really use them in the court anymore.
44% chance of success,
Exactly.
To be honest, Muyiwa sent in a message here on WhatsApp.
Muyiwa says, I think the notion of employability is not in question. So to our earlier conversation, that is the reason we hold interviews and get the best out of the crop.
Yeah.
The question is whether employers are willing to do their duties and develop their workers.
Okay.
How much do they pay? Most employers pay peanuts, really. How much do they train? What's the working condition like? You don't expect a graduate accountant to know how to speak publicly. It takes training by the employer. I think Nigerians are mostly employable.
But you do have a lot of young graduates who can speak publicly. So what is your own reason for not being able to speak publicly? Do you get? And I think sometimes it's a function of the university. Can I mention brands, universities? No?
University names, yes.
Yeah, okay. So me personally as a recruiter, there are certain universities that I know that they're graduates at interview, and it's because I've seen them at interviews. American University of Nigeria, Covenant University, Babcock. I mean, those people are just fantastic at interviews. That's not to say other universities are not, but because I worked closely with them when I was working in the Big Four, so where I used to do campus recruitment and I used to go to universities across Nigeria. I saw the effort that those people put into building their graduates or their undergraduates for the world of work. So they build them for the future. They teach them these things. They teach them how to write your CV. So it's not after you've graduated that you are even
you pay someone to
help you write a CV. I mean, you know, they have like a department handling that counseling guidance counseling
internationally.
Exactly. So where the universities have put effort in place to address those issues, you see that their graduates are actually sound and they do well at interviews.
All right. Thank you very much. Funmi Bucknor is our guest. She's a recruitment and HR projects expert, GPHR. Funmi Bucknor here to speak with us as we have a conversation around a Lagos Talk special around employee welfare, benefits and rights. When we come back, we'll be taking more of your calls. Please call in on 0144899981 if you have any question relating to HR and your welfare as a staff of the company where you work. Please feel free to send in those questions. Stay with us.
This is Smooth Breakfast.
We have calls that have been coming in.
Yeah.
So we'll go to the phone lines.
I like where the conversation is going.
Yeah.
I've heard that the what you just said about those schools, Babcock, Covenant University, American.
Yeah.
I heard that
I heard
as well.
that a
Particularly
lot.
about Covenant. About
Covenant, forget.
To be
Their
honest,
library.
mm,
When I was in KPMG, we were trying to do all these awards now, best graduation or whatever.
yes.
And now said, okay, maybe what we should do is help schools to build libraries. When we went to their library is worth like $28 million.
Hey.
As in, they've spent money on those children.
Yeah, Covenant. I heard they do.
Someone came to me recently and said, I want to hire. I only want Covenant University graduates. I'm telling you.
Do you know the one that? Okay, so when I was working, I managed an organization. One of the places I don't get is Imo State University. Imo State University. I just passed there.
Studio, let's go back on. Mics are up. You love music, love live radio station. Check your time. It's 28 minutes past 9 o'clock. This is Lagos Talks 981. It's a part of Smith Breakfast with Ayo.
And Valentine.
Our special guest is Funmi Bucknor, an HR expert, and she's here speaking on the issues of employee welfare, benefits, and rights. Now, what are employees entitled to in the workspace? Basic rights, benefits.
They're entitled to everything.
Like what?
They're entitled to everything. Okay, but there are things that are required by law. So, for example, healthcare. For example, pension, and a few other things. But if I focus on pension, for example, the employer is required to contribute 10% of basic transport and leave allowance, where you have that kind of structure.
Yeah.
In some organizations, they just have basic. You know, they've collapsed all those things into one. So, and then the employee is required to contribute 8% of the same amount into the fund. However, if as an employee you want to do more than that, you can actually do that. You know, and you just give an instruction to your employer to say, do 15% on my behalf, you know, or something. However, what we find recently, a lot of times, or when I talk to people, is I worked in this place and they never remitted my pension. So, meanwhile, the law requires that it should be remitted 7 days after it's taken out, or after after it's been deducted from salary and all of that. So I think that there is a lot of work for the regulatory body, and that's PENCOM, to go after people that are defaulting, because sometimes people don't even find out until they've left an organization, you know, and they're trying to access their pension, maybe because there's a provision in the pension law that says that if you've left your employment, if you've left full-time employment and in 4 months you haven't gotten another employment, you can access up to 25% of whatever is in your fund, is in your pension fund. So it's when people are at that point and they're trying to access that 25%,
that they realize.
and they realize that, oh my God, nothing has been paid into my
account.
account.
So what can you do in that situation? Because I know a number of people might be in that position.
Or people have taken their employers to court on that, for that. The only thing is that you can't that it be paid to you, the pension be paid to you directly. It has to pay it into the fund.
That's the pension fund administrator.
Yeah, as long as money is coming.
It has to be paid to the administrator.
Are there any penalties?
Of course, there are penalties. I'm just not sure, what exactly. And I'm not a pension expert, by the way. Yeah, but there are penalties for every month that employer did not remit.
So we have the Nigerian Labour Congress that goes on strike when making demands for salary increase across board, and we see that happily that has been increased recently to 30,000 naira for public workers and private workers as well. Part of implementation is another discussion entirely, but the question that I have here is just really, who do we go to? Because usually, it should be the NLC, right? But who has oversight function to protect the rights of Nigerian worker if they have to seek redress before going to court?
Before and the NLC, the NLC. Or you can even you get a lawyer to negotiate with them. I mean, the starting point of a legal process is not necessarily going to the court. You can have your lawyer write a legal letter to them requesting that this be paid, and all of that. I mean, there are other different. You can go to the what are these informal courts called?
Yes.
Arbitration,
Court of
Yeah.
arbitration,
arbitration, and things like that.
Office of the Public Defender.
Yeah, so
things like this.
you can try and use all those avenues before it becomes a full blown legal issue. Yeah.
All right.
All right, we have a phone call here, so let's go onto our phone lines this morning. If you'd like to join the conversation, you can do so via phone line.
Hello. Good morning.
Ah,
We lost you there.
we
Please
lost.
call us on 0144899981, or you can send a message to WhatsApp 0809444091. This one is from Yemisi. Yemisi sent in this one, actually Liberty from Obalende. It says, when you go for a job interview abroad, most times the interview panel wants to know what your qualifications are. In Nigeria, what they're concerned about is who sent you. How do we get rid of this? And do you know where the syndrome came from? Nepotism.
Who sent you? Okay. Well, maybe that's in this public sector or what, because I do not know that if you owned your own private company, you're concerned about who sent you. Well, the truth of the matter is that, all those things exist, and there are no laws governing that, to say you cannot recruit only people that you know, or people that certain people sent to you. So I mean, if I don't know how you can address that.
But
There's
shouldn't
just some
there
issues.
shouldn't there be policies, government policies around that? So in
Yeah.
in the public sector in other countries, you state declaration of interest and then you also talk about the fact that you have to declare if you know the candidate, and there's a clear trail of how the person. I mean, we had the situation of Abba Kyari recently, and it came out that his daughter went through stringent recruitment process. Shouldn't there be a transparent process in recruitment in the public sector?
There should be policies around recruitment. So you should have recruitment policies. So for example, even starting from, why are we even recruiting for this role? Is there a need for it?
Yeah.
And if there's a need for it, what's the process around requesting for the role to be filled? How do we, for example, accept applications? Do we have a job portal where people go and put their resumes, and things like that, and we shortlist from there? What are the parameters for shortlisting, and things like that? What sort of test are people going to write? What's going to be the pass mark, and things like that? And after the pass mark, do people have to do just interviews or an assessment center? And so now coming to the point where, if you know a candidate, because I mean, it's okay for you if I know someone in my family who's looking for a job, and I'm working somewhere and they're looking for, I'll say apply. The only thing is that I will not influence the process for you.
But can you be part of that recruitment process?
You can be, but you shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you get what I
For
mean?
ethical
If you're
reasons.
able to be objective enough, you should be. But because you cannot totally rule out subjectivity, maybe
Yes.
you should take that person off the panel.
Okay.
When they're interviewing their candidate.
All right. Awesome.
All right, we have calls. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning to
morning.
you. What is your name, please?
My name is Jacinta.
Jacinta, we've been waiting for your call. Where are you calling from today?
I'm calling from Ikeja.
Awesome. Happy holidays, eh?
Happy holidays to you two all in the studio.
The-
I've been enjoying Funmi.
Okay.
Hello, Jacinta.
Yeah, she is super, super. Please send. What's your question? You have a question or comment?
My question is that what is the role of handwriting analysis in recruitment in Nigeria? Because in most of the advanced countries, I mean European countries, 85% of their recruitment is being done through handwriting analysis. It's also called graphology.
Yes.
Where through the handwriting of the person applying, you will know the personality traits
Yes.
of that person. That
Yes.
you will even be able to know, you are applying as an accountant, or you well placed
Yes.
sales or marketing.
Yes.
But we found out that in Nigeria, it's not really the traffic. Now, my question now to me as an HR, professional is what is the role and what are the steps that the body of HR is taking to adopt it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
All
you,
right, thank you,
Jacinta.
Jacinta.
Thank you, Jacinta, for that question. The truth of the matter is, like you said, it's one of the profiling tools that people use. But is it 100% foolproof?
I tried it in university days. It was almost accurate for my friends.
Ah, really? Okay,
Oh,
because
are you analyze
Yeah,
handwriting?
I can be a graphologist sometimes.
okay, because even abroad that you mentioned, and I've worked in organizations that the global organizations. I am not aware that they use it to recruit people.
Okay.
So I mean, it's a question of if, as an employer, you want to use that as a tool of selection. But I think that a lot of people are not open to use it because I don't know, it's not 100% accurate, to determine. And if someone says they want to be an accountant, and they've gone to school, they've studied to be an accountant, they even have a first class, so to show you that they are good in accounting. But you now do a handwriting profiling kind of thing, and it says, oh, they should be in marketing. Are you then going to say, no, you should not be an accountant?
But
I'm
like
going
you
to put
said,
you in marketing.
but like you said earlier, an accountant, if you're employing an accountant, you want to look for good analytical skills and communication
Some
skills
and marketing
that
skills
in
and
graphology that can express itself with how the letters join and connect with each other. How the
yes,
circles are
I know,
closed and
but
all.
the truth of the matter is that even the best interviews sometimes is not 100%
You won't rely on
accurate.
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
All right, we have a question, very important one here from Cruz on WhatsApp. He says, "Hi, what's the minimum number of staff an employer must have for pensions and healthcare plans to be initiated?"
oh, for pension, when I was, because I was reading up on that, it said 3.
Yes.
Yeah, so
3 to 5.
3 full time. Yeah,
yes.
full time. But this person asking, it might be that they work in a place where most of people are contract staff, and if you're contract,
It's a
you're
different
not.
thing.
It's a different ball game. But if once the person has 3 full time staff, then they should.
So Bola is interested in the maternity leave conversation that we had. So he's going back to it. So he's talking about maternity leave and productivity. What is Funmi's position on flexibility and improving the work-life balance of workers in Nigeria? It's an important point. A lot of companies all over the world are moving away from the concept of clocking in at 8 a.m. and out at 5 p.m. a measure of productivity. We need to start discussing flexible working solutions in Nigeria, especially when we spend hours in traffic and whatnot. Lagos.
Thank you, Bola.
Yeah.
Point.
Absolutely, and there are conversations around that even amongst HR people and a lot of employers. The only challenge with that, and in my experience, because I've employed people and I've said to them, do only 3 days a week, but on Thursday and Friday work from home. Number one, do people have the discipline to do flexible work or telecommute? Then 2, infrastructure.
Yes.
Because even when I worked in a manufacturing company, for example, I could work from home every day of the week. In fact, my boss used to chase me out. You're at work again. I said work from these projects, that sort of thing. But I realized that I was having to power my generator, to be able to work, and then epileptic internet service and all of that. So at some point I said, what, let me just come to the office and do, but the thing is, for employers, put it in place and, give people the option to use it. I know people who it has worked for. In fact, had a colleague in the same manufacturing company, she enjoyed working from home and she was very productive, everything. So just give people the option to be able to work from home.
And then measure it or evaluate it as time goes by. If it's not working for both of you, then you can publish.
Exactly. So at some point I had to tell my staff, what, this isn't working. It's when I'm looking for you to maybe review a document, you're telling me you are inside bus going to Ajangbadi, and I'm like, you are working from home. It's not time off. It's work. Yeah, it's supposed to be behind your laptop doing work for me. So that sort of thing. Yeah.
But do you think we're ready for it in this climate?
I just
I know you said facilities, infrastructure.
A lot of people are clamoring for it. The multinationals are doing it, by the way. Again, local companies, I would like to see people latch onto that and make
especially
it work.
Radio. Maybe.
Can radio work from home?
Today would have been a nice day while it was raining.
Nah, not gonna happen. Sorry.
We love our jobs.
What will happen though is we'll take a break and we'll come back to take your messages. This is Lagos Talks 981. A conversation is with Funmi Bucknor. She's a recruitment and HR expert here on Smooth 98.1.
My name is
We're ignoring the people on
The thing
telephone.
is that
The
most often
people
times they
call-
call on
Yes.
this one,
Yeah.
and we can't pick
That,
up because we don't
line two.
install.
Okay.
So usually by the time we get here, it's time for adverts or something. So
Okay.
or somebody else is on the line. It's like you guys should call on the proper one. So line 2 is not
Okay.
is not functioning. But just that line. Look at someone.
Guess
on
what?
the line.
We only have 7 minutes left
As in,
to
eh?
go. Time flies.
I'm telling you.
Ayo,
And
would you
people
like
have
to work from
questions.
home?
No, I think I would be one of the unproductive ones. No, actually I would, but I won't work 9 to 5.
To be
I would work
honest,
overnight.
I can't work from home. I don't have the discipline.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Because
Yeah.
even with my business, I now have to go and get an office. Half of the time, I'm lying in bed, just, oh, I'm tired. Let me take a nap. 4 hours, I'm still napping.
I used to think that of myself until we got into the situation where I knew that I had deadlines. Now, when I get home,
Yes.
I drop my things just by my table and turn on the computer. I'm there.
Yes.
I don't know. I forget. Like time passes very quickly.
That's what I'm saying.
and
So I'm more
replying
productive
emails
at
and
night.
everything.
I may
Okay.
play during the day,
The-
but I would work
Yeah.
at night.
Yeah.
So you may not get. So if it's not a time-bound job,
Yes.
like maybe I have
you
to,
can deliver all
yeah,
your
I can
deliverables.
deliver.
Just
Yeah.
send it
So
to
I
me.
would do. I did my dissertation at night, sleepless nights, and I'll play afternoon. I'm okay, but I can't seem to. But this work is making me work in the day.
Yeah, someone actually even suggested why can't people come to work at night?
Yeah, I'll be much
Studio.
better.
No lights. Good morning, Lagos, and thank you for tuning in. Smooth 98.1, Lagos Talks 981. The conversation is around workers, employee welfare and benefits, because workers could be employers as well. They work too. But okay, you know what? Before the next question, let's take a call.
Yes, absolutely. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
What is your name?
Yeah, my name is Diko Masjo.
Hey, Dikbo. Where are you calling from?
Yeah, I'm calling from Kenya.
Okay.
All right, Diko, please go ahead.
All right. I actually got particularly interested when somebody made a call and made reference to graphology
Yes.
and the importance.
Mhm.
I'm actually a graphologist.
Oh,
Nice.
In the country right now.
Uh-huh.
I'm among the leading experts in graphology.
Well done.
One major benefit of it is that it's perhaps the fastest way to analyze somebody
Mm.
right now in the whole world.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, in a country like France, about 85% of their recruitment comes through graphological screening.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's one of the things that we are trying to do right now in the country
Mm.
to ensure that an average HR steps up his or her game by having a graphological skill.
Okay.
You know, so
Let,
I think
let me ask you this particular question regarding that. And you know, we're talking in this with Nigeria in perspective. How do you think it's applicable here?
yes, I think it is. If I'm going by the places we have done a couple of things, I think it's something very, very pertinent that we embrace right now. We've done a couple of jobs with Chartered Institute of Personnel Management, and the feedback has been very, very fantastic.
Do you know why I ask you this question?
Yes.
It's because certain circumstances that we face in the workforce here, well, the environment is unique. So if there's no light, your writing will change. If you're hungry, your writing will change.
Apart,
So
What makes a graphologist different from an average person that looks at the handwriting? What I look out for in the handwriting is not what you are looking out for as a layperson, for example.
right.
Okay.
Regardless of the circumstances, whether you are ill, whether you are sick, or whether you are body,
Mm.
all these factors can change the handwriting.
Mhm.
But there are fundamental things that are there.
Mm.
A graphologist looks at.
An example.
Those are the things. Yeah. So, for example, the handwriting is made of stroke.
Yes.
That's the definition.
Yes.
So that the way your strokes appear, whether they are vertical, horizontal, whether they are sharp or they are smooth,
Mhm.
all those things affect our judgment.
Okay.
They will still give us, a perfect analysis of who you are.
Okay.
So
looking at
Right.
loops and all.
yeah,
Thank
so I
you.
think that HR managers need to embrace it because this is the next best thing in the next few years to come.
Thank you, Dikbo.
I think,
It'll be-
Valentine, if you don't mind, I would love to have your number.
Okay.
I was excited that you got to know about something like this, honestly.
Yes, it's very interesting because I was very quiet in school, so I used it to.
To analyze a lot of people. Thank you so much, Diko.
All right. Yeah. So, Dikbo, you can send an email to breakfast@smooth981fm. We'll get in touch. All right. Thank you. Funmi,
Yeah.
your thoughts on that? I mean, you mentioned that already.
I'm not averse to it exactly. So I mean, it would be nice to have that, but I would just like a situation where it's an addition to other things. So it
Yes.
cannot be the sole selection to
yes.
use.
The reason with Nigeria's peculiarities, another discussion around that is that people here don't necessarily do jobs that they qualified for in university or they studied. Because of the number of jobs that we have,
exactly.
you do jobs that you're given or jobs that are available. So yeah, it might be a bit unfair if you say, okay, like you mentioned the scenario you gave us, okay, you're an accountant, studied accountancy, came out to the first class, if I understand graphological analysis properly, and then you're like, oh, but you're best suited to be an artist. But it's like, I need to put food on the table of my kids. Please let me do this accountancy job. So I don't know how we would work around that because of the unique situation of this nation.
Well, I guess the experts will know. And okay, so now when I worked in a Big Four, one of the things that we required applicants to do was to write an essay. So while really what we were looking for in the essays were analytical skills and judgment and and things like that, we also sometimes will look at the way people wrote, so definitions and things like. But we didn't use it as a sole.
Yes.
There were other things. Did they pass the aptitude test? Well, how did they? Okay, that the writing was even before interviews, so there are different layers to the selection process.
All right, Funmi, I'm very interested to know when is the right time to ask for a promotion and salary raise.
When you think you have done well enough to get to the next level.
Even if it's after a day of working in the...
How can it be after a day? What have you done after a day? No, you must first prove yourself.
I put my best foot forward. Okay,
I have another question to ask with regards to this, because it happens to a number of Nigerians. You're in an organization that can clearly pay, but you're underpaid and you know that. And you're afraid to go and speak to your boss and renegotiate because you're afraid that it might cost you your job. And of course, like they say, there are many others waiting. How can you give us some useful tips as to renegotiate your salary?
Okay, so the truth is that what isn't tried won't work. So, and what is number one, you need to prepare your mind. What is the worst case scenario? Someone telling me no. Okay, can you live with that? Then it's fine. But you should be able to ask, to say, I've done XYZ, and it's not going to be because I feel or because I think that you pay that person more than you pay me. No, go and negotiate for yourself and have a very objective conversation with your boss. I mean, in a good environment where an employer cares for you, it should work. You go in and say, you gave me this project, this was the expectation, but I exceeded the expectation. So say for example, as a tax consultant, I was meant to process maybe 10 TCCs, tax certificates.
Yes.
And I did tax clearance certificates, and I did 50. I mean, that shows that I put in extra work into achieving this. Or I was meant to do just 5 computations and I ended up doing 20, which even meant that maybe I helped some of my colleagues to do their own as well. So I bring a lot of value to the table, to this department, and I think that I am worthy of a raise or promotion.
And that's a drop mic moment. Thank you, Funmi Bucknor, for coming in.
Thank you.
Somebody's
so
already
much.
hailing you on Twitter. Caramello says, "Ta Funmi dim HR madam." Hashtag, well done. Thank you to everyone who sent in messages, WhatsApp, Twitter, and people who called.
Yes.
We really appreciate all of you.
That's right. Thank you very much indeed. It's been such a great morning. Thank you for making coming to work on a work-free day worth it by being a part of the conversation through our various media channels. And you can follow Funmi on social media.
Yes.
What's your handle?
So I'm more active on Facebook as
Okay.
Funmi Bucknor, but I also have a page, HR Madam. I'm on Instagram, Funmi Bucknor. I'm on Twitter, Funmi Bucknor and HR Madam.
So the page you have is on Facebook, yes?
Yes,
HR
the
Madam.
HR Madam page is on Facebook, but I'm more active on my personal wall. So if you send, and it's my profile is public, if you can engage me on Facebook.
Thank you. We can't thank you enough for coming in on the show.
Thank you for having
We
me.
appreciate you. Lagos, we appreciate you for listening, and do well to download that app like we reminded you earlier, so you can listen to the past editions of the shows, the
Yes.
segments you've missed.
And this particular one, this special Lagos Soak special, will be on YouTube. So
It-
you can
it
go
is
onto-
available
it's
already.
available already, so you can go onto YouTube. If you'd like to send the link to someone whom you think might benefit from this, please go ahead and share.
Good morning.